I'd rather be scared to death in front of 1,000 people than I would just 2. I want to say thanks. Can you all hear me all right? I can't hear a thing up here. I want to say thanks to Mountain Justice, OVEC, Cold River Mountain. They've been awful nice to let us follow them around the past few months. This is kind of like it was in the 60s. There's only thing is things have changed a lot. The laws have changed a lot. Used to be back in the 60s we'd go out and demonstrate in the evenings after work and get locked up, and they'd turn us loose in the mornings. We just go back to work, do it all again the next day. They didn't even book us. They didn't take our fingerprints or anything. It's a whole lot different now. They're setting down hard. They don't want any dissent. They don't want anybody to say anything. They just want to do what they do. And they just, well, you all know how it is. Most of you have been in jail anyway.
Right. Yes, sir.
Anyway, I was born in Fayette County. That's not very far from here. My grandfather was a coal miner. My dad was a coal miner. And I know what it is to live in a coal camp. Sometimes it's nice when you don't know the difference, but a lot of times it's not so nice. We bought our groceries from the company store. To start with, when we first moved there, we rented from the company. Dad bought stuff with coal company scripts. You know, they just owned us. That's what they wanted. We even went to a company doctor, and the doctor would tell us what was wrong with us is we just needed a little more fresh air and hard work and all this kind of stuff. My granddaddy died from what they told him was tuberculosis. He started in the mines when he was 12, and I don't remember how old he was. He was an old man when he died, but still I don't think it's tuberculosis. We're just common people. I am. I'm just about as common as you get. Abraham Lincoln said that God must have loved common folks because it was evidenced by the fact that he just made so many of them. Well, that's what we are, and if any of us think that we're not, we can go back a generation and find out that we really are. Now, Abraham Lincoln was, he was just as common as you get, and we don't really try to be common, we just are, and that's all there is to it. Paul Mason was an author, he's a poet, and he wrote his stuff back in the 30s and the 40s, and I read this quite often, and he talked about the common man. He talked about the man that carries the load. He talked about the man that did the work, the man that got called to the army, the man that was called on to vote. And this country was built on the backs of these folks. But his best poem was The Man That Carries the Load. Now, that's what we do. If it wasn't for the common man, this country wouldn't be what it is. We do what we can do. That's all. And this is really hard for me. You can see that. But one of these days, they're talking about having a mountaintop removal project over not far from where I live. I don't know why they call it mountaintop removal when they remove the whole blame thing. When the valleys fill up to where they got to start hauling the debris uphill, then they quit. And it's not mountaintop removal. It's just destruction. That's all it is. They're ruining our country. and they don't really care. And the politicians, they're just tickled to death with it. I heard Joe Manchin say the other day that he had already fixed up a financial thing for the next few years, and he judged it on how much coal severance tax that we were going to get. You know, if I had my way about it, we wouldn't be getting any coal severance tax. I'd put a stop to the extraction of these resources. One time I went to a speech that they were having down in Roanoke, and it was the speech was by J. Edward Day. Mr. Day was the Postmaster General in the Kennedy administration, and Mr. Day gave this speech, and the title of it was "Don't Live on 157th Street," and is what he did is he explained what happened on 157th Street. I don't know what city it was, but it had to be pretty good size to have that many streets in it, I figure. But anyway, one day in broad daylight, in front of dozens of people, this woman was raped. Now, nobody attempted to stop it. Nobody tried to help anybody. It was a terrible thing. And they just stood there and watched, and after it was all over and the police came and they asked the witnesses what happened, they said they didn't want to get involved. Now, we're going to have to do something. That's what's happening here. They're raping this state. They're raping these mountains. And we have to stand up and say we're not going to put up with it anymore. Somebody's responsible for everything. You know, anything that happens, somebody's responsible. And the best thing to do anymore, I guess, is they blame it on God. God's responsible for this, or God's responsible for that. I'll tell you, there's a lot of things God don't have his hands in. Now, it's like down in Virginia, when that boulder rolled down off that mountain and killed that little baby down there. They said it was an act of God. I'm telling you now, God didn't have nothing to do with that. No. Anyway, they blame all this stuff on God. And I'll tell you, we've got to stand up and we've got to say, no, this is not God's fault. This is somebody else's fault. It's these things that are happening to us. It's not because of what God does or doesn't do. It's because of what men do. You can see the situation we're in. We were on the way down here, and you could see up on the edge of the mountain where the trees are real thin. Well, that's not the way a mountain's made. The reason it's like that is because behind those trees, right at the top, that's where they've taken away the mountain. That's all that's left. And well, anyway, I'm just making a plumb fool out of myself. And I want you all to know that I do appreciate your help in what you do. I think that mountaintop removal thing over towards our house is being put on hold for a little while. But I'll tell you, when my windows start rattling, when my dishes fall out of the shelves, I'm not going to go talk to God about it. Somebody's responsible for those things. Well, this is hard enough on me, and I know it's hard on you all. Thank you a lot. Boogie.